Hey everyone, welcome back to the Encounter Late Night podcast. I am so excited to be with y'all. We have a really special episode in store for us today. I have with us Jack Grimes, and we're going to be talking about social media and how to redeem it, especially in this day and age. Social media is everywhere. It is in everything. Y'all are going to deal with that as college students and beyond. It is not going away anytime soon. And so we're going to take some time to just talk about social media, the benefits of it, the dangers of it, how we can use it as a force for good in our lives. And so Jack, just to kind of give him some background, he is our youth pastor at Doxology. He is all things with the kids. Like, he is in with everything. He's kind of like our expert on staff at all social media stuff. And so we're just super excited to hear what he has to say about how we can use social media effectively. I think if you work with middle school and high school students, you kind of have to know social media and trends. And so I think there's no one better that we could have had on our podcast to talk about social media and how it's trending and ways we can use it than Jack. So Jack, thanks for taking the time to talk with us and talk about the topic of social media.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited. You set me up with a really high bar, so hopefully I can stumble my way through it. So thanks.
Well, it's going to be great. I know it's going to be good. I've had a chance to hear a lot about what you've said about even social media and YouTube and how you can use technology, especially in like church, but also personally. And so I'm excited for what you have here for us and for these students. And so let's just kind of jump in. We're going to cover some different topics regarding social media, but I just kind of want to start off with the first question of what is the role of social media that you see in 2021 specifically and beyond?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think at first it's always good to just recognize that like social media, it is a tool, and it can be used for good. It can be used for bad. It inherently should be somewhat neutral. But I think, social media, we've had it around for a while, and it's only going to become like more prevalent, our use of technology and ways to connect with each other. I think the biggest piece of social media is just that connection piece, right? It helps the world become smaller. Like, we're able to connect with people across the world through, our phones or through our computers. And I think that's just such an incredible way. We've seen the power of social media, just overthrowing governments in other parts of the world because of the way they use social media. So it's got an incredible power to connect people. It does help us get information out. Sadly, we see right now it also helps us get disinformation out. The amount of answers out there is like crazy, but finding the right answer is the hard part. And how it's kind of like changing and morphing. I feel like it's starting to become a little bit more individualized. I think people are looking for places to express their creativity and their personality and who they are, and not just kind of have a standard set of tools. I think that's why you see things like TikTok becoming so popular, because there's a lot more tools to help make it more personal and more individualized to yourself. And it allows you to express some of the creativity, right? You see Instagram stealing basically what TikTok was doing and some of the things that they were doing. TikTok just did it better and did it first. So I kind of see that being the case. I also definitely see a trend towards moving towards apps that have a bit more privacy and security. Yeah. I think people are starting to push back a little bit against the big corporations like Facebook, and Instagram that owns Facebook, and even Twitter to a certain extent. So I think we'll start seeing some smaller ones popping up. The question is, which ones are going to stay? Mm-hmm. And, I think that's always going to depend on how popular they are. But I think there's always going to be a need, a measure of like a place that you can feel like this is your place with your people. And I think everyone's going to always have I'm going to always have my Facebook account so I can talk to my grandma on her birthday. Right. But
those birthdays.
Yeah. Grandma's birthday. You gotta, and I don't remember birthdays except for because of Facebook. Right.
Yeah.
So I think we'll always have that, but I think we'll find some places to express ourselves a bit more, to be more creative and just show our personality in a way that's unique. And I think people will find platforms that fit that.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Touching on like the topic of how social media has kind of changed over the years. I mean, I think back to like Facebook and even MySpace. Like when I was in middle school, like MySpace was like the thing, and you still had that like social status with it, but like whenever you're talking about how it's become more personalized and individualized, social media in general, I definitely see that. I mean, I don't have TikTok, but on Twitter, I see this, I have an ad for it and I scroll past it pretty much every day. And I noticed this yesterday when I was even thinking about this podcast, and the ad literally for TikTok, it says like a personalized feed just for you. And so like the whole idea of social media is kind of tailoring from not just giving you information and connecting you with people either, at your school or in your city or across the world. It's becoming like, okay, how can we individually see what this person likes and give them more content essentially that kind of fits what they have. And so, kind of with those changes, how do you see, that kind of affecting, especially like college students and even like students in like youth ministry and then beyond, like even past college and stuff like that?
Yeah, like how you're asking how is social media affecting people?
Yeah,
that's a good question. I mean, social media has an incredible way to connect people, but we can't pretend that everything with social media related is good.
Yeah,
there's a lot of really bad things about it, a lot of problems with it. I mean, we just kind of see this right now that like social media can become a really big echo chamber. Like we can just follow the people that we agree with, that have our same beliefs, and then we just kind of amplify the same message over and over and over and over again without ever bringing in any new ideas or new opinions or new backgrounds of people, which really just that's a really bad thing. I think we saw that just this week with the state of our country. Like it's become such an echo chamber that people stop being willing to listen to anybody else. And that could be a really, really bad thing. You never want to go too far into the extremes on anything. So that can be really, really detrimental. I think we've kind of just lost the idea of nuance. Like even Twitter, they expanded the number of characters per tweet to help people's message become more clear, but you lose some of the nuance that you get out of a conversation, right? That's why podcasts become so popular, is because you can expand, you can talk on nuance, you can dig a little bit deeper into an idea in a longer time period. Yeah. And the downside of social media is it's short little bites that aren't good. And it's not like we're taking little bites of a salad, we're taking little bites of like Takis, right? We're like a lot of what we're eating and consuming is not good for us. And so that we lose that nuance. Social media really like highlights our insecurities, like our need to please people, to be like somebody, the need to be known, to be popular, to be famous. Social media just kind of feeds on some of that. And the ultimate thing is like when we're on social media and we identify ourselves as a Christ follower, we are a brand ambassador for Jesus. Like we are an influencer for Jesus. And so because of that, when we identify ourselves with that, people see our social media and they decide who Jesus is based on our social media. Right now, sadly, we see a bunch of people that claim to be evangelicals, and the way that they post online and the way that they act is definitely far from what Jesus would say or do.
Yeah.
And that puts a bad light on Christ followers and ultimately on Jesus. And because of no nuance, because of no backstory, it like people get the wrong message a lot of the time. And that's really tricky. Social media, just the fact that stuff will follow you online. What you post is on there on the internet forever. So that cute little picture you took at the bar, guess what? Your employer saw that. Your first employer saw that. And they're assuming, they're assuming things about you that they don't get to understand nuance or context behind. And sometimes if you look at your feed, your posts, and you take something out of context, someone could get an impression of you that isn't necessarily true, but based on that one thing they did. And then there's just the pure addictive factor of social media.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you watch what was the name of the show? Social Dilemma.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You want me to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's great. Would love to.
Yeah, so I recommend you if you want to watch it. Social Dilemma. It's on Netflix. One of the guys that's interviewed in the show has a bunch of TED Talks, but it's really the basic idea is social media and really most of technology, most apps are geared to make our brain light up. Like we get like a dopamine hit. Like basically they engineer apps to make them addictive, so that we constantly go back to them. That's the purpose of notifications. That's the purpose of a lot of the gamification of apps, is to get us addicted. I mean, in our brain, it's the same feeling as someone going to the poker table and or the slot machine and spinning that wheel, or like cocaine. Like the same part of your brain that lights up and you take cocaine lights up when we get some of these notifications for social media, and they're engineered to grab our attention. Right now, we're in an attention economy. People are trying to get our attention whatever way they can, and so they're going to do whatever they can in order to get our attention.
Yeah,
and the hard part is like that is not good for students. And I hate to say this, because we rely so much on it, but really college students, your brain is still developing. Like if you look at how people's brains develop, brains are still developing into like 20, 21, 22, like bodies are still changing, brain is still changing. And so it's not good for your brain to be given an addictive device. It affects your brain. And what's funny is if you watch a lot of these tech developers and tech people, like their kids aren't on devices. Like they know the inherent downside of this technology, and they don't let their kids and stuff on it.
Yeah.
And so that's the really hard part, is like, how do you use it but not become addicted to it? How do you recognize some of those symptoms? That's where it gets tough.
Well, I think that's like a really interesting point, because, we talk about the role social media is going to play in 2021 and beyond, and we see it as, like you were saying, connection and information. And yet you have this other side of it that is the addictive side, that like they're literally just trying to keep you on that platform for as long as possible. And they want you to just look and look and look and look. And it becomes that kind of what you're saying, that addiction almost, to where we just have to like see what's going on. We just have to like that itch to like look and check. I've been actually reading a book called The 10 Arguments for Deleting Your Social Media by Jaron Lanier. I don't know if you've heard of him or heard of the book. It's interesting, but he brings up a couple of those points that you're talking about, specifically like I think he's a computer scientist out in Silicon Valley, works for like Microsoft Research, and he's just talking about how like a lot of his friends that work in, Silicon Valley, they send their kids to these schools that they don't have any electronic devices. And I just thought that was fascinating. Like, okay, well, why? Why would they do that? Because they see the dangers for how it can affect, growing, changing minds. And it seems like, an innocent like thing, like, oh, I'll just spend like, a couple minutes here, a couple minutes there. But over time, you see yourself like staying on it and being on it more and more and more.
Yep.
And I think it's, fascinating talking about just this like idea that the like how it's just so addictive. Like, I just think it's wild to me how like it just does. It just like makes you like focus in. I feel like a bug flying into like a light. Like you just can't like take your eyes off of it. Yeah. And part of that is because it's so individualized. Like what you were saying earlier, it's like because they're tailoring it, they're, collecting all your data. They're collecting like why you look, like how long you look at pictures, what stuff you'll read all the way through, what stories you'll look at all the way through. They'll tailor, your feed, towards that. And I think we think that there's no cost, to it, but I think there's a pretty decent cost to it.
Yep, absolutely.
And so, I mean, yeah, we talked a lot about, some of the negative effects, but I mean, there are definitely benefits, to, social media. And what would you say like some of those benefits would be?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the obvious, like you can reach a larger audience online than you ever could in person.
Mhm.
That's your message can go further. Like that's an easy one. One of the other big ones I think is that we don't realize often is like we can just learn from different point of views. People of different backgrounds, different histories from us, and it helps us really build empathy. I was talking with a friend earlier this morning about this idea of like, we can be against certain types of policies and government things, but until we actually know a person that's affected by that, right, there's a big disconnect.
Mhm.
And we can easily be against something, but we don't actually know anybody that's affected by it. And so that's the good thing about social media is we can meet people and understand their point of view and build empathy, which I think the world needs more of. Obviously, we get to meet new people. One of the great things for me is that like it just cuts down on that chit chat when you meet someone in person. That
Mhm.
boring like, hey, what have you been up to? What do you do the past week? Like that boring like, okay, we all say it, we all do it, but we can just kind of cut some of that chit chat out because we already know what people have been doing. And then really, you can give people a window into what it looks like to be a Christ follower
Mm.
and to be a real Christ follower who's like a real person. Like on my social media feed, like I don't put a bunch of verses up. I'm not like in your face Christian dude. I'm still a real person. Like I'm a dad. I have fun with my kids. I read books. I play video games. I
Yeah.
hang out with our pets. Like I'm still a real person that has real problems, and I'm not perfect. But let me at least show you a glimpse into what it looks like to be a Christ follower. That it's not weird. It's not some super religious thing. It's not some sort of you've got to do all these things to be a Christ follower. It's like I'm still me. It's still
Mhm.
my personality. I've just decided to follow Jesus and to claim Him as my Lord and Savior. And so I think that's one of the really big benefits of being on social media
Mhm.
regularly.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think about, what you're saying about seeing other people's point of views. I think that's something it's helped me out. And I still have to be cautious of it because, like it's easy to like form a pack mentality,
Yep.
while on social media. And just like when you see people like that traditionally like you align with either ideologically or whatever it is socially, and they pile on somebody, and then it's hard to not pile on them. And so I've had to like consciously like train myself to be like, okay, well, like, let's try and see their perspective, like, and it gives me a window into like being able to see something else from a different side. And so I definitely think that is a huge positive.
Yeah.
Something that it's hard to do because you want to follow people you like, you want to follow people you're interested in, and so you're not going to be naturally like inclined to always follow, if you're a Democrat or Republican or vice versa. And so like I think going out of our ways to like expose ourselves to different point of views, for the purpose of just trying to learn and to see, and so that we can have context. Even on platforms that don't offer a lot of context,
Yep.
Initially. And so, yeah, there's benefits, there's negatives to it, but I think one of the things is like, how do we actually like use it and improve like our social media use? How do we improve, I guess, even our personal health when it comes to social media? I mean, we talked a lot about how it can just be addictive. Like we can just stay up all night, like, looking at social media, whether it's that or just comparing ourselves to other people.
Yep.
There are a lot of those negative downsides to it. But like, how can we redeem it essentially? Like what are ways in which, everyday people can have a healthy use of social media?
Yeah. I mean, I would say I think the key word there is cautiously, because we talked about some of the downside, but there's that like spiritual component that sometimes social media can take our attention and our time and sometimes our hearts, and that ultimately can pull us away from God. Like we begin to just slowly realize we've drifted away because we've been consumed with social media. And that downside of that social media is it's so easy to compare, to look at other people and say, I wish I had this or that, or look like this or that, or compare our body or our finances or our career or whatever. And we can become envious or jealous or even prideful to saying we are the person that has all this and has all that. And there's also that realization that like physically it affects our bodies and it affects the way that we sleep. And like, so I'm saying we have to be really, really cautious. And to me, it's like asking the question, am I healthy enough? Am I in a good enough space? Am I mature enough to use social media?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do I want to use it for a good reason? Or am I really trying to fulfill a need in my heart that really only Jesus can fill? And you have to be mature enough to ask that question, to really reflect on yourself and your reason for wanting to use it, and seeing if you're even in a good enough space to use it first.
Mm-hmm.
And if you feel like you can, if you're not trying to, you're not looking for affirmation, and you're not looking for some sort of connection that it doesn't come from Jesus, if you're looking at it for entertainment, like you need to be in a healthy space in order to use it. And if you feel like you are, then the next question I feel like you have to ask is, does what I post, who I follow on social media, all those things, like, does it give glory to Jesus or not? Like, if someone were to follow my social media, what would they say about a Christ follower without any other context? And like those two things should hopefully give you some guardrails, like a way to check yourself and your intentions and motivations to make sure they're in a pure and good place, to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. And if you're like yes to those two things, then you kind of need to start setting up some other guardrails, right? You need to set some time limits and, like set some limits to say, you know what, if I'm in a bad mood, if I'm grumpy, if I'm lonely, I'm not going to get on social media, like, because I'm going to do something I shouldn't be doing. I'm going to slide into someone's DMs because I'm lonely, right? I'm going to put this thing out here because I'm angry. I'm going to, right. And those things could really have some serious consequences. Maybe not immediately, but keep that thought process going. I'm lonely on Friday, send a DM. I'm lonely again on Monday, send another DM. Like this stuff kind of can start to snowball, and put you in a bad place. So you need to realize, like, when am I not healthy? What are those signs? Can I put some restrictions on my social media? Like, be aware of the dangers. Know about it, and then give someone in your life permission to call you out if they see something that you post that's out of character, that's out of place. Like, tell someone in your life, hey, you have full permission to call me out if I post something that doesn't give glory to Jesus. If it doesn't honor Jesus, send me a text, take a screenshot and say, Jesus would not do this, right? And even go to the extent of saying, hey, I'm going to give you access to my social media so that you can check my DMs, you can check all the stuff that I'm following to see if, okay, yes, this is healthy, this is good for me. And if you're hesitant to do either one of those things, you may need to reconsider whether you should be on social media in the first place, right? Because if you're hesitant, that might mean you're trying to use social media in a way that is not healthy. So I think if you can sort of like give yourself some of those boundaries, I think then it allows you to be in a place where you can use it in a good way and be mature about it and use it to honor God and to reach people with the message of Jesus. But it doesn't come naturally. Again, the tech is against you. The way they program it, it's against you. So because it's against you, you kind of have to be on your guard and set up some guardrails in order to use it in a way that's healthy and beneficial to the world around you.
Yeah, I love that. That's so cool. Like, just being able to like assess if you're in a mature spot, like, am I mature enough to be on social media and to evaluate yourself and to see, okay, am I comparing am I using this as a tool of comparison? am I using this as a tool of pride to like show people, look at how great I am? Then yeah, like we need to reassess, like, is this something I need to be on? And I think the hard part is it's become so normal.
Yeah.
It's become like, it just is normal. Like you're just supposed to have it. And it's kind of weird when you don't, or if you're not on it. And so it's kind of like we allowed this problem essentially of like not setting boundaries, of not, kind of letting the tech control us versus us control, our tech, and kind of let it spread. And we're starting to realize, oh my goodness, like it's kind of getting out of control, but there's so much more social costs. There's so much more at stake essentially.
Yeah. And here's the cool part is like, if you decide to not be on social media, people will probably notice. And if you give them like the real reason, like I want to be in a healthy place, I want to be mature, I want to be responsible, that's different than what the rest of the world is going to say.
Yeah.
And that difference ultimately points back to Jesus, like, because you're realizing you need to be in a healthy space, that like you're mature enough, you want to use this, like that could be a conversation that could lead to a conversation about Jesus.
Yeah.
Right. And so don't underestimate the power of not doing something, right? Sometimes being the pro-Jesus person on social media is just as effective being not on social media and just following Jesus. Like one's not better than the other. They both can be used by God. So don't underestimate saying no. That can speak really loudly in a world that often says yes.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I really love that, that last section of just how do we use it well? And sometimes it's not using it. Sometimes it's saying, hey, like I am not in a space right now where that if I post, it's not going to glorify Jesus. That it's not healthy in how I'm seeking affirmation, seeking connection. I'm looking for that in people and not in the only person, that does satisfy.
Yep.
And so being able to assess yourself and to set boundaries and to let people in, I think that's awesome and super helpful. It's hard, it's easy to sit here and say like, here's the problem, here's some ways we can help it. But there is, because like we were saying, just such that social expectation of like being connected and finding your information, that makes it difficult. But I think it's a necessary step. These are necessary steps that we all should kind of evaluate within our own lives. But awesome. Well, Jack, thank you so much for just kind of talking through social media, just this quick conversation.
Yeah.
But we have like some quick hitters that we like to do at the end of our podcast, kind of let our listeners in on a little bit about you personally and what you enjoy and kind of how everything's been going on in your life. And so there's just quick answers. We'll just kind of rattle through them. But yeah, so first one is what is your hot take?
Yeah, here's my unpopular opinion. COVID will be a big blessing for universities and colleges. Here's why I'm saying this. You probably don't agree with this right now. I think we can all agree that colleges and universities do not put education first. They put sports or amenities first. Mm-hmm. That's not the point of colleges or universities. The point is not to go to a school with a lazy river or Chick-fil-A in your cafeteria, blue, whatever. You're supposed to go to school to learn and to figure out yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that COVID just wrecks colleges and universities so that they stop spending so much money on sports and amenities and things that are useless and start focusing on an education and helping you figure out how you're gifted and who you are and what you're good at and make you better at it.
Yeah.
Instead of spending a bunch of stupid money on things no one needs or asks for. So I'm hoping COVID just decimates colleges and universities.
Just no more football. Get rid of it. Get rid of all of it.
Dude, it's crazy how much money they spend on stuff like that. So, and you guys are paying for it. You're paying for it.
I'm guilty. I have season
You're
tickets.
Literally paying.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. I actually saw something.
I'm still paying for it.
I saw Elon Musk actually said something similar. Like college isn't about education anymore in America. It's about having a good time and meeting people. It's like that's what it's about. And honestly, I look back on my time in college, and I spent 90% of it socially. Like that was it. So I think you have a case. I think you have a point. It's a hot take for sure.
Take. Yeah.
But thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So what are 3 of your simple joys of life?
Yeah. I mean, right now it's my family, my wife and 3 daughters. My stepdaughter's 15, and then I've got a 4-year-old and 2-year-old. Love my family. Love hanging out with them. It's been super, super fun spending time with them. Love me some video games.
Nice.
I stream on Twitch.
What games like specifically right now?
So right now I stream on Twitch,
Nice.
and my daughters will sometimes stream with me. But I've been playing just random stuff on Xbox, or I've been playing through other just random stuff.
Nice.
Whatever.
Stream on Twitch. That's great.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
We might have to get your Twitch handle.
Yeah. You can follow all social media at Jack B Grimes. B as in Brandon. It's a middle name. So Jack B Grimes on all social platforms.
Awesome.
So yeah, family, video games. I just love investing in people. I really do love like seeing people be the best versions of themselves. So I enjoy pouring into people, into leaders, anybody that's willing to be like, I want to go further.
Yeah.
That's the kind of people I love hanging around.
Well, especially, I mean, like even with this topic, it's such a big topic, and realizing like, hey, like this isn't going away. And especially in your context of, ministering to middle school, high school students and their families, like having them like realize like, okay, like here it is, it's not going away. How are we healthy, and how do we use this well? And so I think that's awesome with basically social media. And what's your favorite books last 6 months that you've read? Like anything specific?
Yeah. So I have a goal to just read a bunch of books. I read, I think, 80 something last year, in 2020.
Goodness.
So you can follow my Instagram at Jack B Grimes. I just posted top 10 books of 2020 I recommend. So
nice.
Go check it out. I guarantee there's a book there that's going to improve your life.
I'm going to check. I am a sucker for like book lists. Like that's honestly how I determine what I'm going to read the next year. Just, like I read what everybody else read last year, and they recommend.
Yeah, that's what I usually do too.
So,
a lot of times.
I'm definitely going to go check that out. And then last question, what is your 1 sentence advice for college students?
Yeah, this is a run-on sentence. But it's the idea, like wherever you go to school is not who you will be, right? Like TCU, UTA, Wesleyan, whatever school that's not who you will be. So while you're in college, invest in relationships, invest in personal development, build your character, build discipline, build spiritual rhythms of following Jesus. Build those things that are going to help you the rest of your life, because college classes really don't matter.
Yeah.
They really don't.
No.
It's all about building those self-development things and pouring into people. Definitely. That's what's going to matter about college.
Yeah. I love that. That's so great. Couldn't agree more. I think that'd be tough to convince some Aggies of that notion. Shots fired. Sorry, not sorry, I guess. But I think that's really, really great advice. I wish I would have, spent more time investing, in my disciplines and spiritual rhythms, definitely spiritual rhythms. But Jack, thank you so much again for being on and talking about social media.
Yeah, you bet.
How we can use it, especially in 2021 and moving beyond, kind of some of the dangers, some of the, benefits of it, but some of those boundaries to set, and really like being able to look and assess, am I mature enough? Do I set boundaries for this? And then what am I posting? Does it glorify Jesus? Does it reflect my character? Because, character is it's so much more important than having so many followers, and so being able to guard our character and to make sure we're, living for Jesus and showing that through our social media platforms as well. Yeah. But how can our, listeners keep up with you and what you're doing? Move on.
Yeah, you can follow me, Jack B Grimes. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, all of them.
All of
all the
them.
main ones. So
Sweet. Well, thank you so much again. We will see y'all later. Thank you so much for listening.
thanks
Bye.
for having me.